Considered to be one of the seven princes of hell, the demon known as Asmodeus has been involved with both lesser-known biblical characters such as Toby, as well as more recognized figures such as the archangel Raphael and King Solomon. In all of his appearances, all of which appear in non-canonical biblical stories and apocryphal works, Asmodeus is as evil as they come, notably being responsible for kidnapping, torturing, murdering, and conspiracy against man. According to the classification of demons by a German bishop and theologian, Peter Beinsfeld, Asmodeus represents lust of the seven deadly sins. Asmodeus, or originally known as Ashmadeeva from an early Eastern Iranian language, is thought to mean wrath, but we don't get to see much of his wrath from the text available. We see that Asmodeus's wrath, if any, is often thwarted by mortals and angels alike, and that while he is revered, he shows tremendous cowardice when met with direct opposition, often opting to flee from battle and hide behind the women that he has managed to possess. There does appear to be a mention of a similar demon name in 2 Kings 17, where we see the people of Israel who are exiled to Assyria set up false gods to worship. One of these false gods takes the name Ashima, which some believe is the demon Asmodeus, seeing as the names are quite similar. The second book of Kings 17:30 says, "It is those from Hamath who worship this being." Beyond this, the main mention of Asmodeus comes out of the apocryphal biblical story in the book of Toby. Toby, a God-fearing man who goes blind from taking a face full of bird droppings, would you believe, sends his son Tobias on a journey to retrieve some money he's owed. On his journey, he meets Archangel Raphael, who disguises himself as a man named Azarias, who becomes Tobias's guide. As their journey progresses, Tobias meets a kinswoman and his daughter, Sarah, a woman he falls in love with. Of course, there's a catch, though. Sarah appears to be cursed, in that whenever she takes a husband, that husband dies on the night in which they consummate their marriage.
We soon learn that this curse is the result of the demon Asmodeus, who is haunting Sarah, and his role in the story is to plague Sarah so that she remains single. We never really learn why he's doing this, but some have contemplated that Asmodeus is obsessed with Sarah and possibly infatuated with her. But knowing she would never love him, he chooses to destroy her potential spouses so as to keep her for himself. When Sarah agrees to marry Toby, Raphael advises him not to sleep with Sarah on their wedding night, but to place the heart and liver of a giant fish they had previously caught over piping hot coals. This has the effect of driving Asmodeus away from Sarah, where he is subsequently pounced upon by Archangel Raphael, who defeats him in battle and bounds him to Egypt, allowing for Toby to seal the deal with Sarah. The text tells us, "The smell drove the demon away from them, and he fled to Egypt. Raphael chased after him and caught him there. At once he bound him hand and foot." In other translations, we see the Archangel Raphael make a more permanent punishment of Asmodeus, and that's by strangling him. Whilst Asmodeus is thought to almost certainly be an evil entity, as he presides over Sarah, killing her husbands and taking a possessive role over her, others see him as misunderstood. In this light, Asmodeus is thought to have been a protector of Sarah, and that while he may have grown attached to her, he killed her husbands because of the lust they had towards her, a lust which may be more intense than the actual love they feel. By this, Asmodeus is simply looking out for Sarah, and therefore, you might say, meets a harsh fate at the hands of Archangel Raphael. We soon learn that this curse is the result of the demon Asmodeus, who is haunting Sarah, and his role in the story is to plague Sarah so that she remains single. We never really learn why he's doing this, but some have contemplated that Asmodeus is obsessed with Sarah and possibly infatuated with her. But knowing she would never love him, he chooses to destroy her potential spouses so as to keep her for himself. When Sarah agrees to marry Toby, Raphael advises him not to sleep with Sarah on their wedding night, but to place the heart and liver of a giant fish they had previously caught over piping hot coals. This has the effect of driving Asmodeus away from Sarah, where he is subsequently pounced upon by Archangel Raphael, who defeats him in battle and bounds him to Egypt, allowing for Toby to seal the deal with Sarah. The text tells us, "The smell drove the demon away from them, and he fled to Egypt. Raphael chased after him and caught him there. At once he bound him hand and foot. In other translations, we see the archangel Raphael make a more permanent punishment of Asmodeus, and that's by strangling him. Whilst Asmodeus is thought to almost certainly be an evil entity, as he presides over Sarah, killing her husbands and taking a possessive role over her, others see him as misunderstood. In this light, Asmodeus is thought to have been a protector of Sarah, and that while he may have grown attached to her, he killed her husbands because of the lust they had towards her, a lust which may be more intense than the actual love they feel. By this, Asmodeus is simply looking out for Sarah, and therefore, you might say, meets a harsh fate at the hands of Archangel Raphael.
Asmodeus is also thought to appear in the Talmud, though under the name Asmodai, where he's presented as a less violent demon in that he doesn't kill anyone, but shows himself to be a cunning and wicked demon nonetheless. His name, Asmodai, meaning evil spirit or evil demon, is quite fitting in the Talmudic story between himself and King Solomon. His most notable appearance is where he's captured by King Solomon, in the story appropriately titled The Story of King Solomon and Asmodai. The story begins with Solomon building his temple, where he asks the rabbis what's the best way to go about doing this without using iron tools. The rabbis tell him of a creature called the shamir, which Moses had used to engrave the stones on the breastplate worn by the high priest, and that this would be a good resource. The rabbis also know how best to obtain it, and that was to consult amongst the demons. So Solomon went off and bound a whole bunch of demons and asked them where he might find the shamir, to which the demons declared they didn't know, but did know someone who did, Asmodai, the prince of demons. They tell Solomon that he can be found upon a certain mountain, filling up a cistern with water from which he drinks from. And there, every day, he ascends to the skies, where he learns something new from the celestial school. Then he returns to earth and drinks from his cistern, a cistern he marks with his seal so as to prevent it from being tampered with.
Solomon sends Benaiah to capture Asmodai, which he does by carving a cistern above Asmodai's cistern and pouring wine into it. He also drains the water out of Asmodai's cistern by digging beneath it, and so when Asmodai returns, he finds only wine to drink. Succumbing to thirst, the demon drinks the wine and gets so drunk that he falls into a heavy slumber. Benaiah, with chains that he had received from Solomon that beheld the name of God, binds Asmodai and drags him back to Solomon. Upon waking, Asmodai tries to escape but is at the mercy of Benaiah, who continues hauling him back. On this journey, every tree and house they pass is destroyed by Asmodai as a sign of his spitefulness for having been captured. We also begin to see what we think at first is a multifaceted character, in that Asmodai demonstrates a range of very human emotions and expressions. He sends a blind man back onto the right path when he sees him wandering in the wrong direction, and begins to cry upon seeing a group of people having jubilant fun. He laughs when he hears a man asking a shoemaker to make him shoes that would last for 7 years. Asmodai is thrown into prison and is not seen by Solomon until 3 days later. He mocks Solomon, questioning why he cannot be satisfied with ruling what he already has. But Solomon doesn't rise to the bait. He demands to know where the shamir is. Eventually, they get the shamir, but Asmodai remains in the prisons, where he is questioned by Benaiah, who asks him why he had helped the blind man they had seen. Asmodai shows us that what we thought might have been honest traits actually had insidious motives. He tells Benaiah that he had only helped the blind man because he'd heard that the man was righteous, and that he'd heard the heavens declare that he who helped him would receive a portion in the world to come. By this, we see that Asmodai only had himself in mind. Benaiah continues to interrogate him, asking why Asmodai had laughed at the man asking the shoemaker to make him shoes that would last 7 years. To which Asmodai tells him that the man asking for shoes only had 7 days to live, and the fact that this man thought he had 7 years to enjoy a pair of shoes was hilarious. Interestingly, when Benaiah asks why Asmodai had cried upon seeing the group of merry people, we get a glimpse of Asmodai's humanity in that he is not a complete asshole, but actually has some measure of compassion for man. He tells Benaiah that of the people in that jubilant group, One of them had just been married, but was to meet his demise in 30 days. Asmodeus seems to take pity on the widow who would be forced to marry the brother of her deceased husband, a mere child no less. Asmodeus is kept in prison until Solomon has finished building the temple. But one day, Solomon, who visited Asmodeus, asked him what sort of power he actually possessed. Asmodeus, eager to escape, told Solomon to give him his signet ring and to remove the chains that bound him, so that he might demonstrate his powers. Seeing nothing amiss about this request, Solomon obliged. And as you would have guessed, Asmodeus blasts Solomon with his wings, sending the king flying for over 400 miles. Solomon was duped, and having been blasted so far away from his kingdom, had to resort to becoming a beggar. In his absence, Asmodeus took Solomon's place, disguising himself as the king as he got up to all kinds of mischief. Perhaps his greatest, most ultimate troll-tastic move was sleeping with Solomon's wives, all of whom he bedded nightly for 3 years. But that couldn't sate his lust, and Asmodeus really wanted to stick it to Solomon after he had imprisoned him. And what better way to stick it to someone than by sticking it to their mother? Yep, Asmodeus, after having banged Solomon's wives, set to bang Solomon's mother, Bathsheba. Solomon would somehow muster up the dignity to show his face again, and as you can imagine, was pissed off. He stormed into his throne room and saw Asmodeus, now a doppelganger of himself, seated in his throne. Asmodeus didn't fancy having to answer for the crimes he had committed, and so ditched the throne and took to the skies, fleeing from Solomon's vengeance. Despite the somewhat triumphal return, it's said that Solomon was filled with constant fear of Asmodeus thereafter. This is actually echoed in Song of Songs 3:7-8, where it said, "Behold the bed of Solomon. 60 mighty men are about it, each man with his sword upon his thigh because of fear in the night."
There appears to be another text that shows Asmodeus encountering Solomon, albeit a non-canonical Jewish text, from between the 1st and 3rd century titled The Testament of Solomon, which sees the two characters meet in an entirely alternate fashion. It comes about after Solomon encounters the demon Beelzebub and is able to entrap him and a series of other demons using a ring he obtained from the archangel Michael. With the demons under his control, he sets them to work on building his temple. It is when the demon Asmodeus is brought to Solomon do we see yet another variation of his character. This one far more vengeful and aggressive than the previous ones discussed. You only have to look at their very first exchange. In the text, Solomon tells us, "And I had at once bade another demon to be led unto me. And instantly there approached me the demon Asmodeus, bound. And I asked him, Who art thou? But he shot me a glance of anger and rage and said, And who art thou?" Asmodeus eventually reveals that while he's bound by Solomon's power, his kingdom will one day fall apart, and on that day, himself and his fellow demons will be free to dominate mankind. In response to this, Solomon has Asmodeus flogged until the demon confesses his true purpose. As he tells him, "I am called Asmodeus among mortals, and my business is to plot against the newly-wedded, so that they may not know one another, and I sever them utterly by many calamities. I waste away the beauty of virgin women and estrange their hearts. I transport men into fits of madness and desire when they have wives of their own, so that they may leave them and go off by night and day to others that belong to other men, with the result that they commit sin and fall into murderous deeds." Through his confession, we see how much of his story links to that of the Book of Tobit. Asmodeus goes on to reveal that he was put to flight by the smell of a fish's gall and liver that had been burnt over the coals. He pretty much begs Solomon not to send him into the water, to which Solomon sees an opportunity to take the absolute piss. He commands Asmodeus to make the clay for the entire temple and to tread it with his feet, whilst holding jars of water, knowing full well of his disdain for the element. He goes a step further with his ridiculing of the demon, burning the fish's liver and gall over Asmodeus because of his being so strong, and his unbearable malice was thus frustrated. So despite telling Solomon his utmost triggers, Solomon proceeds to exact them out upon Asmodeus.
In the Malleus Maleficarum, Asmodeus is identified as the demon of lust, most powerful during November. He's thought to control 72 legions of demons and serves under Lucifer. In the dictionary Infernal, Asmodeus is thought to have a serpent's tail and 3 heads, one of a man spitting fire, one of a sheep, and one of a bull, riding a lion that has the wings of a dragon. Over in Islam, he is referred to as Sakr or rock, a likely reference to the belief that Solomon trapped him within a rock before tossing him into the sea. Other beliefs see Asmodeus as a king of jinn or even as a consort to Lilith, the mother of demons. There appears to be a few layers to the character of Asmodeus or Ashmodai, where we can see him as both a terrifying demon who is aggressive and powerful, as well as an obnoxious schemer who relishes in causing rifts between married couples. He seems to be emotionally intelligent, able to understand man's desire and how best to use it against him, as well as demonstrating the ability to cry, suggesting he is far more human than we might give him credit for. In any case, Asmodeus is perhaps one of the most complex demons in terms of his behavior, his personality, and why he does the things he does. As always, guys, if you've enjoyed today's video, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up and be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out. Until the next time, guys.